Some individuals enslaved in America attempted to achieve freedom for themselves, that is, attempted to run away. In 1851, a physician named Samuel Cartwright linked this to mental illness. Cartwright called this so-called illness drapetomania, meaning roughly from the Greek words runaway madness. Many people today attribute suicide to mental illness. But one thing seems rather clear in both these cases, which is that the attribution of mental illness is very much based on the thought that there's something wrong or undesirable about these behaviors. That is, unless you already think that there's something wrong with suicide, you're not going to attribute it to mental illness in the first place. Similarly, if Cartwright and others didn't regard attempts to escape bondage as undesirable, they surely would have never attributed that to mental illness. So given that, we might ask, what does attributing suicide to mental illness add? Is it just another way of expressing one's disapproval of suicide? And I think perhaps on one level it is. I say on one level because I think expressing one's position on suicide in medical terms has a number of important, if you like, rhetorical advantages. One such advantage is that by claiming that anyone with thoughts of suicide is mentally unwell, we make it difficult for individuals to defend their thoughts of suicide in a rational manner. Because after all, why should we take anything such an individual says seriously? And thus Thomas Szasz writes, "We say that an individual has a neurosis or psychosis when we disagree with what they say or how they live. We disguise this disagreement by attributing it to disease." I think therefore, if we want to think clearly about suicide, it's best to abandon terms like illness and disorder. So instead of asking, is suicide caused by mental illness, or are suicidal individuals mentally ill, a more direct and I think better way to ask the question is this: is suicide, ending your life, the right thing to do? But how might we determine this? Well, in very general terms, I think by considering all the reasons for and against it. One consideration that clearly seems to count against suicide is any negative impact one's death will have on others, directly or indirectly. On the other hand, one consideration that clearly seems to count in favor of suicide is that life is full of suffering, and death is freedom from suffering, for the individual that dies, that is. And in my view, suicide is sometimes right when the balance of reasons favors suicide, and sometimes it isn't when the balance of reasons opposes suicide. I think like so many things, it's going to depend on one's circumstances.